It's time to get brutal. It's time to get American. It's time to get Primeval. Hey there, folks. It's the man you may know as Z from Our Reviews Will Kill You, and I am here. Just wanted to talk a little bit about American Primeval. You may or may not have seen it. It's one of the Netflix, it bumped out Squid Game for the #1 show. So I wanted to talk a little bit about it. I wanted to look at what the future looks like for it and a little bit of fact versus fiction as to what is going forward for the show. So let's get into it. I am not a huge Western person, but I like movies like Tombstone and 3:10 to Yuma, but I'm not always going to follow Westerns. But I was turned on to this and I said, all right, I'll check it out. And that first episode got me hooked. It is a brutal, dark depiction of Americana based on a true story with, highly fictionalized things going on there. So there's a bunch of fictionalized stories. It's a historical fiction stuck in there. And it's brought to you, and you're not even going to believe this when I show it to you. It's brought to you by your favorite director of Battleship. Who knew? He also was an actor in Chicago Hope. That's right, Peter Berg. And he's doing good right now. I don't know how you felt about such movies as Deepwater Horizon and Battleship. And he did a Lone Survivor. I mean, some people like Lone Survivor. Not saying it's a bad one. Friday Night Lights, he's a director of. Yeah, he brought us this. It's crazy, right? Who would have thought? Peter Berg. But this he directs, I think, almost all the episodes. He's the producer. And it is the brutal telling of the 1857 Mountain Meadow Massacre. A bit of Americana that I didn't know. I'm a fairly big study of American history, and I never heard of this. And I have now learned to fear Mormons because of it. I have a deep-set fear of Mormons based off of this show. I had no idea they were so violent and so mean. They're so mean. So our story is really about a confluence, a bunch of different characters congregating all in the same place. And as their stories gather together, they're then sent apart to spread out on their own, and they have their own kind of unique story. There's a woman and her child, and they are trying to get to... And I'm going to screw some of this up, so I'm going to do the best I can telling you the story. But they're making their way west, and you're not sure why, because there's some things going on. And I may spoil some of this, because you need to know the fact versus fiction part. So I'll try to tell you exactly when I get to the spoilers. And she is making her way west, and one of the only ways west is through this gateway called Fort Bridger, which is true. Fort Bridger was used. It was in Wyoming, and it was used by many, many settlers and Mormons and all sorts of people to get west. I guess it's like one of those stops on the Oregon Trail, right? And so she's making her way there, and she ends up at Fort Bridger, and she needs to find herself a way to continue her trip once she gets to Fort Bridger. She's looking for a guide. So she attempts to get the American soldiers to do it. They're not very helpful. The owner of the fort is a private citizen, Mr. Bridger, and he tells her like he really can't necessarily help her. Maybe she could ask a bunch of the other groups to go. And he gives her some options. She approaches a guide that she could pay, and he tells her that he's not interested. That's Taylor Kitsch, star of the show. And the female, and I just want to tell you, the acting, absolutely stunning, phenomenal. Taylor Kitsch was amazing. In fact, there's very few people in this that weren't amazing. I feel like her name was on it somewhere, but I can't remember what it is. Why wouldn't they show all the people who were in this show? The female lead was amazing. I like, there's not a single character that I could tell you that was not Absolutely fantastic in this. So the mother and son are still looking for a ride, and they eventually come across a group of Mormons that take them in and say, you know what, we're gonna allow you guys to come with us, and they head off, and the Mormons meet up with a bigger group, and the bigger group are all kind of together. There's a group of Mormons, there's a group of a bunch of people in there, and they get attacked, and that is the basis, the foundation upon Peter Berg's inspiration. And that is the Mountain Meadow Massacre. I believe that's what it was called. And there is some differences between what happened and what was real. And there is a survivor. She becomes a survivor with her son and meets up with the guide who previously helped her. And then everybody kind of branches off. The Mormons, there's a husband and wife that are in it. There's some spoilers here, so sorry, folks. There's a husband and wife. The husband realizes that he survives. His wife has been kidnapped by what he thinks is Indians. No one knows who assaulted this group of travelers. They're in like a wagon train, like all put together, and they get attacked by hooded men. Well, it turns out the hooded men are, in this show, Mormons who are trying to protect Zion. They're moving across country because they're fleeing persecution. Their founder, John Smith. I forget who the founder of the Mormon religion is. Adam Smith? No, that sounds like economics. Anyway, he was persecuted back in the day, and now the new leader is Brigham Young. And Brigham Young is you may know from such things as Brigham Young University. Same guy. And he's not such a nice guy. I looked him up in a little bit, and the Mormon leader, after it was Joseph Smith. So Joseph Smith was the leader who was assassinated at the age of 38, I think it was. And Brigham Young took over. He was the next leader, and Brigham Young had 152 wives. It's kind of crazy. But we follow the exploits of all these different people and kind of see what happens in the West. And it's pretty fascinating. I loved it. I thought the ending had like one piece that was too much contrivance for me. Like there's these people just happened to be in this part just so that they could meet up. And you know, it's like plot armor to put them all together, which I didn't like that. But overall, I would give it high marks. It's not quite an A, maybe a B+, like an 88. The tomato meter, just to give you an idea, has it here at, oh my gosh, it's basically my score. The critics have it at 68%, 88% for the fans. A mother and son fleeing them from their past form a found family while confronting a harsh landscape of freedom and cruelty in the American West. This is not for the light-hearted. There's a scalping. Every single episode, there's multiple murders. It is extraordinary brutal. It's oppressing, and it really gives you a feel for just how brutal it was in the West at that time. I mean, that's what it's trying to portray. I have no idea if it was that brutal, but it sure seems that way. I'd give it an 88. I'm right there with it. I highly recommend it. I hope it gets a second season. We'll look at that right now. A surprising update about a second season. The only way that they feel like they could go at the moment is a prequel. I hate prequels. I'm not interested in a prequel. But what I would suggest is, Peter Berg, just look up another interesting piece of American history and fictionalize it and do your own bit about it so people could do their own research and come to their own conclusions. You know, I don't know. Brigham Young is portrayed a very specific way, but he is trying to protect his people. And it's a little ambiguous whether or not he's the villain or not. But you know what? He had his own vision for the way that he wants things. And not everybody gets a happy ending in this, but we're going to get to real spoilers because we're going to talk about fact versus fiction. I know this is the part you really wanted to hear about. Let's take a look. Is it based on a true story? Fact versus fiction. So there's a lot that is fact and there's a lot that's fiction. It's a historical drama, right? And this is set in the Utah Territory in 1857, and it's a violent conflict between Native Americans, pioneers, Mormon soldiers, and the U.S. government. Okay, here's the stars. Taylor Kitsch, excellent. Betty Gilpin, excellent. Kim Coates, Shea Wingman, Sarah Lightfoot Leon. All of it's pretty interesting. They're all very good. There's one character that I didn't like, but I'll explain. Hopefully I'll explain why. So he did some research, Peter Berg, on the Mountain Meadows Massacre in 1857. What did he fictionalize? So there was an actual massacre, but it took place over about 5 years, or not 5 years, 5 days. And in the show, it's depicted as one day. It just happens, it ends, and that's it. But let's talk about the characters who are real. Jim Bridger, excellent real life pioneer. He created a small city called Fort Bridger. That really happened. Brigham Young, also absolutely excellent. He was the leader of the Mormon Church, commanded his army known as the Nauvoo Legion. And then Wild Bill Hickman was definitely his right-hand man and notorious lawman and a member of the militia. Many of the Indians were made up. They weren't real people, and there were sort of accounts of them, but not exactly real. The main characters, the central family, is completely fictionalized, which is fine. You know, Gilpin and the 2 kids and Kitsch are completely fictional. And then the Mormon couple, I didn't know her name. I knew her name was something like A Bish. I just like to call her A Bitch because she kind of is. She's not very nice to anybody. But they wanted to explore the idea of a young Mormon woman who's like has to sort of assimilate into a Indian culture, which happened all the time anyway. That there's lots of people being adopted and assimilated into Indian cultures. Yes, the Mountain Meadows Massacre did happen, but it really was a little bit different than the way it happened. It does seem to be that members of the Church of Jesus Christ, the Latter-day Saints, known as Mormons, murdered 120 immigrants in the Mountain Meadows in Utah on September 11th, 1857. So that was kind of crazy. You know, he said he used several, Berg says he used several sources for research, but obviously it's fictionalized and they had to like tighten things up. There was definitely tension between the U.S. government and the Mormon Church. Somehow, Brigham Young ends up being the governor of Utah, like the legitimate governor of Utah. It's crazy, right? Fort Bridger was a real place. Absolutely. It was a real fur trading post in the 1850s. So all of that's pretty cool. I thought the sets were incredible. And the cinematography is great. The drone work, all of it just really looked amazing. I loved all of it. And I highly recommend it. And just one piece of history that you should know as another spoiler. In the final episode, Jim Bridger, the owner of Fort Bridger, does in fact sell his fort to Brigham Young, and Brigham Young burns it to the ground in 1857 to keep it from falling into the hands of the U.S. Army. This was like a real secessionist movement, and it's pretty fascinating to see like what what an armed militia can do against the military. So fascinating, absolutely fascinating, and yeah, I highly recommend it if you could stomach it. Try to get through the first episode and see how you feel, because it is brutal. It is in fact brutal, but I really enjoyed it. And I think Peter Berg, a lot of people don't like Battleship, but you know what? He put his, I saw some behind the scenes stuff on that. He really put his heart and soul in it. And as goofy as a movie as it is, if you take the time to watch it, it's actually not that bad. I swear, it's not that bad. And Peter Berg, solid director. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Did you watch it? Did you enjoy it? Would you take a chance to watch it now that you know it's based on facts and historical history, like actual history? Are you interested in watching it? I would love to talk to you about it below. In the meantime, If you join our channel, you get access to exclusive videos. We have a podcast you can catch. We typically live stream at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Friday nights. Come join us. It's a lot of fun. Support the channel. We appreciate it. Thank you for watching this much. I hope you enjoyed it. I know you did. I don't hope. I know. But thanks for letting us share our reviews. But I'm on to the next one.
Thanks for catching the video. Be sure to join our channel to get the education you deserve. Make sure you check out our shorts, live streams, and catch us on all the socials. Don't forget to like and subscribe.